Greetings to the world. This is Tribal Tea Talk, and it is a pleasure to be with you today. Not really a pleasurable topic at all, but something that as tribal people we have to confront, and that is the world food crisis. Now, I don't know how many people out there saw this article from May 21st, 2022, and this is on Fox 29 Philadelphia on their website, fox29.com/news. And what this, the title of this article is that the world has 10-week supply of wheat, experts tell UN Security Council. Quote, this is seismic. Dear, please read this terrible article.
And so it says global food insecurity has reached levels not seen since the financial crisis of 2008, and it's only going to get worse without aggressive intervention, a food insecurity expert told the United Nations Security Council this week.
Hold on a second. A food insecurity expert, guys. Let's look that up at some point. What is the role of a food insecurity expert? Please continue.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine did not start a food security crisis, but it did add fuel to a fire that was long burning, said Sarah Menka, CEO of Grow Intelligence, a global company that uses artificial intelligence and public and private data to predict food supply trends. This isn't cyclical, this is seismic, Menka said during a special meeting of the UN Security Council. Even if the war were to end tomorrow, our food security problem isn't going away anytime soon without concerted action.
Pause a second. So she said this isn't cyclical, this is seismic. So for those who are a bit confused about the word seismic, so think about earthquakes. So what she's literally saying is that this food insecurity issue is a cataclysmic, as in catastrophic, as in disastrous, as in terrible, as in extremely bad situation. But we're going to go a bit deeper into the article.
Before the Russia-Ukraine conflict began, the two countries supplied a combined one-third of the world's wheat exports and were in the top 5 exporters of corn. Coupled with the widespread fertilizer shortages, supply chain issues and record droughts, the world has about 10 weeks worth of wheat on hand, Menka said.
So just to stick up in there, let us touch back on widespread fertilizer shortage. So if people aren't aware, there is a big issue wherein the world's supply of phosphorus is pretty much depleted. There in the early 90s, well, probably from the 1700s coming into the 1900s, the I don't know even know who to call them, colonists, I'm not sure, were very rapacious in scraping every cave, every seaside, everywhere that bats or seabirds were living in order to get guano, which is extremely rich in phosphorus. Later, they really started to exploit mineral phosphorus, where you actually have to mine the earth, break rocks, crush rocks, etc., in order to get the phosphor mineral, the phosphorus ore. Now, the options of the world concerning phosphorus supply has pretty much dried up, and it is only really Morocco that has any supply of phosphorus left. They have the largest reserve, and I'm telling you, I totally believe that Morocco is going to be using this for its advantage. But let's continue.
Without aggressive global actions, we stand the risk of an extraordinary amount of human suffering and economic damage, Menka said. Now, what's causing the global food insecurity? Menka said the global food crisis can be attributed to 5 factors occurring simultaneously. Combined, They're creating unprecedented challenges that will impact the world's food supply for several years. Firstly, as she lists, lack of fertilizer. Fertilizer prices have nearly tripled over the past year and quadrupled over the past 2 years, Menka said, thanks to supply chain issues. Restrictions on natural gas and export restrictions amid the Russia Ukraine war. The fertilizer shortage could significantly reduce crop yields for big suppliers like the United States, Brazil, and Western Europe later this year and into next year, severely impacting global food security and inflation for 3 to 5 years at a minimum, Menka said.
At a minimum, and as I just mentioned, the situation with Morocco and the world shortage on phosphorus, because that's really what the issue is. If you guys continue to follow our page, our YouTube, etc., subscribe, we will be going through quite a few things, which includes the natural extraction of phosphorus from particular plants and fruits. Very important because phosphorus is what allows plants to set fruits, flowers, and fruits, right? So we're gonna get into that, but let's go deeper.
The second that was listed was climate change. Now, global drought conditions for wheat are the worst they've been in 20 years around the world, Menka said. Major bread baskets like the US and Brazil, the world's two largest exporters of agricultural products, are also experiencing extreme droughts.
No, this is where we're going to have to start digging deeper into the traditional means of agricultural production of our people because we have been relying on methods of agriculture that have been invented over the last 100 years or so, and they completely ignore certain basic scientific and biological facts such as the makeup of soil, the fact that soil is a living organism that is comprised of millions and billions, maybe trillions of other living organisms. The details are deep, guys, and we're not going to pack so much into this video. But let's continue.
Cooking oil shortage. The price of palm oil has nearly tripled in the last 2 years, Menka said, and the world has lost 75% of sunflower oil exports to the war in Ukraine. China has also notably increased the amount of cooking oil it imports.
Once upon a time, guys, in Jamaica, you had what you say rural or quote unquote country people living off of coconut oil that they used to extract the whole way by boiling, grating the coconut first, boiling, etc., etc. And what happened was Jamaica was stricken by a plague that they call lethal yellowing. Not really sure where that came from. People have a few theories. Maybe as time goes on, we'll touch into them. But this thing kills coconut trees and it wiped out maybe 80% or more of Jamaica's coconut tree and coconut supply. So, listen, this thing has been going on a lot longer, and we will be doing our part to elucidate a lot of this.
Grain shortage. Russia and Ukraine accounted for a third of the world's wheat exports before the conflict began. Now the world is seeing record low grain levels on top of fertilizer shortages, supply chain issues, and droughts. Supply chain and logistical bottlenecks. Supply chain issues created by the pandemic have been exacerbated by the Russia-Ukraine war. All Ukrainian ports remain closed, making it impossible to move any of Ukraine's harvested grain across its borders, Menka said. Shifting to rail will move less than 10% of pre-war flow. It's not enough. It's a once-in-a-generation occurrence that can dramatically reshape the geopolitical era, Menka said. We cannot solve food insecurity on a national scale anywhere. While the next few years will likely be difficult, we can coordinate a global response. War threatens global food supply. Russia claims the 10,000 plus sanctions the country is facing for its aggression towards Ukraine have disrupted routes, impeded Russian vessels from delivering goods, and restricted commercial transactions because of banking difficulties. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said those claims are false. The decision to weaponize food in Moscow is Moscow's and Moscow's alone, Blinken said. Sanctions aren't blocking Black Sea ports, chopping ships filled with food, and destroying Ukrainian roads and railways. Russia is. Sanctions are not emptying Ukraine's grain silos and stealing Ukrainian farm equipment. Russia is. Blinken said sanctions imposed by the US and many others aren't preventing Russia from exporting food and fertilizers because they exempt exports of food, fertilizer, and seeds. And we're working with countries every day to ensure that they understand that sanctions do not prevent the flow of these items, he said. UN Food Chief David Beasley warned the Security Council that the war in Ukraine has created an unprecedented crisis of escalating food prices that are already sparking protests and riots and growing hunger. The crisis could add at least 47 million people to the 276 million marching to starvation before Russia's invasion of its smaller neighbor. The executive director of the World Food Programme said 49 million people in 43 countries are already knocking on famine's door. Beasley recalled that when food prices got out of control in 2007 and 2008, over 40 countries faced political unrest, riots, and protests. We are already seeing riots and protesting taking place as we speak. Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Pakistan, Peru, he said. We've seen destabilizing dynamics already in the Sahel from Burkina Faso, Mali, Chad. These are only signs of things to come. Beasley urged world leaders to do everything possible to bring the markets to stability because things will get worse.
And people, one of the countries, the first country actually mentioned in that list of countries where rioting, etc., is taking place already, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has totally collapsed. And we'll be getting into that because we're going to analyze the effects that total food shortage or food scarcity or even food inavailability will have on nations, states, countries, and individuals, community groups, etc. So, in conclusion, we would like to leave you all with a simple message. Firstly, please continue to support us. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel because we will be using our tribal knowledge to create real life solutions to the problem of food insecurity on any level that we can. And we're hoping that by putting our voice out there, by putting our knowledge out there, that you who hear us will be inspired to work with us or to do your own thing. It's completely fine. We all need to work together as well as work individually to solve this food crisis. We need to get back to basics. We need to stop scorning our ancient tribal ways. We need to stop scorning the ways of the countryman and the countrywoman. We need to stop thinking that some foods are poor foods and some foods are status foods because that kind of thinking is what got us where we are in the first place. I must also say, for all you alkaline vegans out there, one thing I can say for sure, Dr. Sebi was 100% right when he advised us to get away from wheat and wheat flour, right? 100% correct because see now we are faced with a crisis of immeasurable magnitude and it is only the traditional plants that our ancients used that will be able to save us. So, thank you for listening. Just keep looking out. There will be more videos like this. We will be addressing this issue both on the ground and on the web. So we'll be showing you guys what we are doing. We'll be explaining to you a lot of what we do and how we do it so you can replicate if you feel like, if you so choose. This is an educational platform and we'll be using this to educate the masses about issues that maybe your national media is ignoring. So thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. It's Tribal Tea Talk. Like, share, and subscribe.